Alright everyone, welcome to Deep Dives with Dogs. Well, today's topic is the conquering of France by the Germans during World War II. Oh, Mayhem. Just feeling a... You see, Mayhem, this is why you don't walk near the trees. See, he likes to walk near these trees. I don't know why exactly, but he likes to. But there's sometimes plants there that are not as friendly, let's say. So it's better he doesn't. But, yeah, so today's topic is of course, invasion of France by the Germans during World War II. It really came as kind of a shock to everyone in the world because at this time, the French had probably the largest army in the world. One of, if not the strongest army, at least a lot of people thought, at the time. Um, but the French had grown kind of, what's the word? Uh, Kind of too comfortable in their victory after World War One. In some ways, so did the British as well. I know they'd maybe later be like, "Oh no, we didn't," but they were as well. They were a little too overconfident in their, and that this war would be just like the First World War. And so their uniforms are still kind of out of date. The same problems actually they had in World War One as well. Actually, same exact issues. The uniforms are a little out of date. Their tactics are a little out of date. And their plans are a little out of date. And it really, this time though, it's not like the First World War where they're able to just, okay, we'll stop the Germans and hold a line. No, it's not going to be like that. Obviously, the Germans punch through the Ardennes forest, and it splits the line in half, and then it's obviously absolute devastation after that. You have things like the British and some other nation troops escaping at Dunkirk, and then you have the French by themselves trying to hold on to the nation, and it's just not happening. Um, and some of that has to do with some straight up like traitors in their midst. Some of their generals just straight up went traitor and did things that intentionally sabotaged the French during this. Things like pulling back when they shouldn't have, committing troops in places that they shouldn't be in. And this sounds like, oh, well, it's just incompetence, but it was done on purpose, and that's the issue. Um, but yeah, the French position, it was doomed. It was doomed, and there was really nothing they could have done at this point. Many would say, oh, it's the Maginot Line. That's what, oh, the Maginot Line, what an awful defense. But the Maginot Line did its job. Now, it should have been doing much more, but it did do its job. The Maginot Line was to deter the Germans from invading France through the border between them. So, and it does that. The Germans don't want to go through the Maginot Line. The Maginot Line, while everything else in the French was maybe a little out of date, the Maginot Line was still very much up to date and was a terrifying defensive perimeter that realistically nobody wanted to go through. That's why the Germans go through the Ardennes. The Ardennes, everyone thinks of as an impossible military target. You're not really going to get through it fast. It's too big, too slow. To get through, enemies are going to know, blah, blah, blah. But the Germans managed to do it. They punched through the Ardennes. It's this natural defense that nobody thought anyone could come through. Well, clearly not. It's not this magical defensive line that they maybe had thought. Um, should the Maginot Line have gone all the way up? Probably, if you're going to think of, well, the Germans are invading. But obviously, it does harm relations with other nations that are around the French. And that's kind of why they don't do it. They figure, oh, the Belgians will be able to hold for a long time. And I think all these things, but it just proved not to be true. They weren't wrong in thinking these things, but Obviously, in hindsight, which is 2020, you should have probably done that. But yeah, after Dunkirk, the French, like I said, are holding on. Um, but you have up north, like people like Erwin Rommel, who punch through the Seine River and will try to keep pushing towards the Atlantic, and I mean he'll do it. And the French obviously will eventually capitulate, but yeah, it's awful. As the French, it really is a defeat that no one could have expected, really, and that I'm sure they would have preferred never happened. The British probably hoped the same thing. The British managed to get lucky, unlike the French, unfortunately. The old English Channel doing its job, like it always does. But that's gonna do it for this video. If you guys like the video, leave a like. If you have any ways I can improve on these videos, leave a comment down below. I just appreciate your feedback, and as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.